And we are live.
I don't think any bee can forget.
No.
All right, thank you everyone for the short break. I'll keep the mayor's report as short as I can. First off, there's a number of folks that have been expressing concerns for Chief Campbell and his health concerns. The whole community, of course, expresses their desire for a quick return and a quick back to health to him. Very thankful
We did not.
for the, yeah, okay, I'll transition to that.
Apologize.
Want to, thank everyone for that support and thank Acting Chief Sergeant Reed for his, for his work during this time. We need to vote for the minutes, approve the minutes from our previous meeting. We skipped over
Motion to
that,
approve
so
minutes from the previous meeting.
Second.
that
Aye.
was for the 13th. Anybody have any kind of amendments or anything? There's been a motion to go ahead and accept it as is.
Second. We've already voted.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're gonna move this one.
Yes.
No, I want some.
Secondly, thank you to the Finance Committee for completing their evaluation and of the review from the Executive Committee, getting that all finalized for moving on with the pay of our village administrator. Next, I was asked by one of the, I don't know how many of you know how many high schools we have here in Gulf Manor. My understanding is that we have two. And I was asked to speak at one of them this past week. Actually, I was asked a number of months ago to speak this past week there by Rabbi Afson. To commemorate education and sharing in the village of Gulf Manor. This is a proclamation that was made both by the U.S. Congress as well as by the state of Ohio, as well as by the city of Cincinnati. And I was asked to join those ranks and give you a proclamation. I'll go ahead and read that. Now, whereas excellence in education is vital to the success of the village, and in Gulf Manor, we seek to instill each child and adolescent with good education. And whereas by preparing our students for the responsibilities and opportunities for the future, education develops the intellect through lessons on literacy, math, and science. Whereas Rabbi Schneerson dedicated his life to the betterment of mankind and tirelessly advocated for the better education for all Americans. And this year we celebrate the Jewish Hakel year, a year of unity and spiritual growth. Whereas Rebbe taught that education should not be limited to the acquisition of knowledge and preparation for a career, but also on character building, with emphasis on the universal moral and ethical values that are the basis of any peaceful, civilized society. And whereas the United States Congress has established Education and Sharing Day USA as an annual national day to commemorate the Rebbe's achievements and the lessons and the vision he set forth are relevant to us all today. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Densmore, do hereby proclaim Sunday, April 2nd, as Education and Sharing Day in the Village of Gulf Manor and call upon educators, volunteers, and citizens to reach out to young people and work to create a better, brighter, and more hopeful future for all. And I proclaimed that on the 24th last week.
You're
You're here.
Motion to affirm.
Is there a motion to affirm?
Motion to affirm. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Very good, thank you. I've received questions about as many of you may have, about the energy aggregation that we have discussed several times here at council. What I wanted to share is that if folks have continued questions about that, they can certainly follow up with the administration. What I've shared with folks is that, in all honesty, I don't fully understand it either. But I trust that our administration has the best interest of our residents in mind and that this has been very well vetted. And so when people ask me, should I be opting out of this or should I be going with it? I'm saying I can't recommend it. But as I said, I do trust our
You can't
administration.
recommend either way.
Actually, the best advice to people is to go to Duke Energy's website and look at what the rate is on the day that you're looking at the rate.
Right.
And it's up and down.
Right.
So some
So
days
does that-
our rate's better, some days it's not.
Right. So this locks in whatever rate without any fluctuations.
Correct.
Correct. That's what that
As
does.
all the
And
previous ones.
Right. And this is not Duke Energies then, or it is Duke
It's
Energies?
Energy Harbor.
Energy Harbor. Okay,
Your bill comes from Duke Energy.
I understand that.
Yeah.
The
So
People were thinking
people, on their
this is-
bills, they will say AEP, which is natural gas.
Yeah.
They used to see, I think it was,
Dynegy.
I can't think of the name of the
Dynegy.
company. Yeah, used to see Dynegy when it was electric, but that's off there now. So when people, I've seen people complaining online that there are these strange names on their bill, that's not us.
Right.
That's one of the scams that they do is ask to see your bill at your door, and then they write down your information, and then they submit you to their plan.
That's
And
correct.
they're telling people, don't
Right.
let people look at your bill.
great recommendation. So the Southwest Ohio Consortium of First Suburbs Communities met over the weekend in Wyoming. I was unable to attend due to illness, and I know that there's been interest that's been expressed by other council members in terms of going to those. Once again, I'll reiterate, if you're interested, let me know and I'll let you know when they're meeting, and be happy to attend with you or for you to attend at my place when I can't make it. And that is it. So I'll turn it over to, that is it. And I'll turn it over to our village administrator for his report.
Couple of quick things. You're gonna see milling of the pavement start on Weehee probably this week. Mailing went out to the Albrook residents last week announcing the project, and the construction schedule is now online. Englewood Canterbury pre-construction meeting is tomorrow morning in this room at 9:30. We'll be sending letters out to the residents sometime at the end of this week. The municipal road fund, I mentioned earlier this evening, we did receive $92,000 towards the funding that we need to complete the Weehee Road project, which knocks our obligation down, I think, to around $400,000 out of pocket. Finally, grant funding. The police department applied for a $400,000 personnel grant, like maybe 6 months ago, and we received it.
We have not received the funding yet.
We've not received the funding, but we received approval for the grant. And that will actually pay for 2 new hires that we've already hired, in addition to there being additional money for retention bonuses and other monies to do hiring if we need to. That's a
very
huge
nice.
plus.
Well done, guys. Well done.
So,
Just for the police department.
and Sergeant Reed has done an excellent job so far in leading us during Chief Campbell's out time, and we'll keep you advised. That's my report.
Awesome. Mr. Pridnoff, as fiscal officer, do you have a report?
So I think everyone was here for the fiscal officer report. So I will say see the finance committee minutes, which will be forthcoming.
Can I ask you?
Can we do that? Can we do that, or does that need to be?
Oh, I think you can do that. But actually, typically, a lot of times they just present a report.
I was gonna ask the administrator, since the police are not here tonight, did you hear about wind damage, like how that was in the village?
No, if not.
Yeah, all I heard was several reports on the news about lines down, but then when you click on it, they didn't have any other information other than
Well,
that
brief
reported.
Our section of Fremont was out because Pleasant Ridge went down for about 2 hours.
I mean, I saw roof shingles on people's front lawns.
Yeah.
This was crazy.
Yeah, there's a porch that got.
There was
blown
a
off.
big tree on the side of it. That's the other thing I was aware
Yeah,
of.
porch roof. Anyway, I was just curious,
Yeah,
because I,
the guys were driving around with the truck picking up stuff.
thank you.
End of report?
End of
And
report.
Okay, very good. Solicitor.
I do have, for the police department, I would mention, the activity report for the month is in the council packet. So, just take a look at that. There were some interesting statistics there this month.
Awesome. Mr. Butler.
Thank you, Your Honor. There's one piece of legislation, ordinance 2023-3, it adjusts the appropriations periodically. You passed your initial appropriations ordinance at the end of last year or the first of this year. You did it last year, however, periodically it needs to be adjusted to provide for expenditures. And I think Eric might have a little bit more to say on this than I do.
So, yeah, that's a good point. I really should have reiterated this. This was something that we spoke about in finance, but again, the main point is that we're unappropriating money from the general fund to pay for the continued service with Deer Park Silverton, and then we will be reappropriating money out of the fire levy, which has not yet been received from the county, but will be received within the, we've been informed that we will receive the money within the next 2 days. And then we will continue to pay DPS out of the fire levy instead of the general fund.
Make a motion to read by title only.
Thank you.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Ordinance number 2023-3, an ordinance to amend appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the Village of Gulf Manor for fiscal year ending December 31st, 2023. I need a motion to amend, to waive the requirement of 3 readings. It is an ordinance.
So moved.
However, because it's appropriations, it becomes effective immediately. Thank you for your.
Second.
I would ask for order for real. Sorry. Thanks. There's two, is all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Your Honor, I do have 2 other things that are coming down the pipe. In 2020.
I'm sorry, so do we need a motion to, that was a motion to suspend the rules. I believe we need a motion to
I'm sorry,
adopt.
motion to
and then
adopt.
Roll
You're
call.
right.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Roll call, please.
That was Ms. Snyder. I apologize, and Mr. Van Harn. Okay. Mr. Fisher,
Yes.
Mr. Knibb,
Yes.
Mr. Marks,
Yes.
Ms. Snyder,
Yes.
Mr. Van Harn.
Yes.
Thank you.
Again, 2 other things that are coming down the pipe. 2020, the council engaged in the One Ohio Collaborative on behalf of, or joining with other communities in the state of Ohio with regard to litigation against opioid manufacturers, authorizing a committee to settle with the various defendants. That settlement has been reached tentatively, but it needs approval from a certain percentage of communities throughout the state of Ohio. So at the next meeting, I'll bring in legislation forth to address that. At this point in time, we don't know how much money Gulf Manor is going to get out of the settlement, but there will be some amount that will be coming back to the village.
If I may, that entirely possibly could be something which would be useful for previous discussion that we had about nonprofits.
Yeah,
There are,
My understanding is that that there will be no money coming to Gulf Manor of the so the board of the Hamilton County Board of Commissioners, all right, proposed a plan of how we create the committee that decides where the money goes, all right. And those committees were handpicked in terms of how much they submitted a report of how much damage opiates did in their communities. All right. There was, and my understanding of how that plan works is that the the communities that incurred the most damage, as documented by the people who were coming and saying to this committee that they incurred damage, that's how they'll be splitting up the money. Now, it's not just going to communities, though. It's going to nonprofits as well, like Talbot House, the major monopoly folks. So I had specifically, the reason why I said 0 was because I specifically went to the county commissioners asking about that question, because we were being asked to buy into how they were creating the committee that would make the decisions about the money. And so I specifically asked, what does that mean for Gulf Manor and money coming? And the answer was,
we have received $2,500, which is not nothing, but you're saying further funds.
Right.
Okay, so
And I could be mistaken too. So let me,
okay.
Well,
put that
yeah,
all in there. But that was my
we
understanding.
hadn't heard that, and
Okay.
again, we don't have the first. We didn't have the first time. The local government fund was reduced several years ago. I believe from 2.55% down to 1.66. The legislature has been pushing and pulling on that money and trying to figure out whether there's been forces that want it to be increased, forces that want it to go down. Apparently, the the Ohio Municipal League is looking for support from the various communities to support it basically not going down 1.66. So I'll have legislation next meeting, hopefully that we can adopt and send it out to show our support for maintaining it at 1.66. And that's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Do we have a report from the executive committee? I know they did not meet this evening.
Yeah, we did not meet, just had a couple small things, that, we're kind of resetting our agenda based on discussions starting at the beginning of the year. So I'll be sending an email out to everybody, kind of give you an idea of what is coming up for us, so you can weigh in or just see what's going on. One thing that has come up is the tree plan, trees for the village and stuff like that, which, I may ask Mr. Butler to look into in terms of if there's any state laws in play on us planting trees and what else was the other?
So it
In the right of way.
wasn't, yeah, what was being
Oh,
discussed
in the
wasn't the
right of
tree
way,
plan,
that's
it was the right of way. Tree plan's something
That's what it
separate.
was.
Yeah.
Okay. About, I think our ordinance now says you can't plant right away.
Correct.
And now we're thinking about,
Well, it's our right of way,
right, how
so
we,
arguably we could do it because it's our right of way. We could do it.
We
It's not
want to
good
allow
form.
residents to plant there.
Well, it's not good form for us to do it without amending the zoning, although we could.
Right.
But it just doesn't look good because once those trees start appearing in the right of way, residents are going to want to do it. That's correct.
Yes.
so.
I was just gonna say, I think the request was for sample ordinances or amendments to the zoning
Yeah,
for
that's fine.
your
And
next
it's gonna be up for
meeting.
discussion probably in the next executive meeting.
Okay.
But to allow planting trees in the right of way?
Or just any
Just
information on-
planting.
I mean, getting examples so that they know, it was raised by Ms. Schneider, the idea of, I thought that what was raised, you had mentioned like putting garden boxes.
That was an example of what not to do as a
Okay.
tripping hazard, so
Right,
close to the
right.
sidewalk and to
Yeah.
cars. But just that we already have people who have planted plants there, and so they're technically out of compliance, and there are environmental reasons to allow people to plant at least natives of, and then there would, of course, be, criteria that people would have to.
So not
So
just
what I
trees.
found is there's quite a bit of discussion around this. We'll be having an executive, I invite you actually.
Thank you. And similarly, I would like to invite you to, we are hopefully having someone from the Civic Garden Center who runs a lot of community planting programs. She might be a person that can answer a lot of questions at our
Okay.
April 11th meeting.
And then, we have a couple other pressing items that are coming up. I'll probably explain that in email. And our next meeting is April 17th at 6:30.
5:30.
My
5:30.
apologies, 5:30. That end report.
Thank you, sir. I see that the next scheduled planning commission meeting is Monday, April 3rd, at 6:30, pending any business. Any
So
other
far,
things to
there's
report?
So far, there's no business.
Community engagement, Ms. Schneider.
Yes, community engagement met and they recommend that council adopt the strategic plan insofar as the initiative areas and goals. So I believe everyone here was in attendance for that meeting, so this is just to move forward with the strategic plan, understanding the specific action items bulleted are subject to change, given people's interests, or, we don't want to wordsmith it, but we do want to actually move forward with what we've had sitting there for a while. So I don't know if there's anyone who would also like that, make that motion that we adopt the strategic plan insofar as the bullet points and,
So you're making a motion, are you making the motion now? You're making a motion?
yeah, I will make the
She's
motion
making a
now
To adopt the strategic.
to adopt the strategic plan insofar as it's bones, not the
I'll second that.
fleshy stuff underneath.
Open
Any
discussion,
discussion?
yes, open discussion. I kind of was taken back with that piece of paper as everything that was written there is something that we have discussed and is in our minds and plans, how administration was pointing that way and all of us throughout the past year has been talking about all those bullet points. There was nothing new that came out of this. I was a little taken back on that. It wasn't set up with goals. It wasn't set up with the way that takes us further. It was just saying, oh, everything that you said, I'm putting it on a piece of paper. We all said that already. So I was a little taken back on that. And I would like to hear what other council members have to say about that.
And it seemed to me that they, when they opened the meeting, they just kind of came in and said, all right, guys, come on, shit about the pot, essentially, get something done. And I agree with that. I mean, we need to get something done. My biggest questions are, what's happened, where has it been discussed? From, I think it was like last October was the last time council saw the report and the recommendation. I personally haven't seen anything, and I didn't see anything brought to council. And from what I understand now, it's going through engagement committee.
This was the first time that engagement, and that's a document that we were all given, so we're
Right.
just saying.
Right, so my question going forward is, how are we gonna vet, shape, and implement it going forward? I'm curious how that's gonna work.
And they said that they would help us do that, but that the first step was to adopt the strategic plan, so.
Right, and I just feel like it's probably something that should be discussed in executive. With more of the elected, we have in engagement, we've got 2 elected officials, and we've got 6 councilmen. I just thought that was something that should actually happen in executive or a subcommittee of executive to really kind of vet it out and see where we're at. But right now, we're just, I just saw a piece of paper and I was like, okay, this is the same thing we had before. What steps have been taken?
I think they were all just waiting for us to adopt something. And
I would say a couple words to that. My understanding, one of the things that I have said for quite a while to everyone in open council is that, going back into last year, we've got this draft. All right, we've also got examples of what other communities have done. I would ask you to look at the examples, look at the draft, give us feedback on, what things you'd want to add in there. I also pointed out some things that I had some concerns about. I came to the community engagement and raised some of those things, to which they said, yeah, you can alter this as it goes. Now, what I heard them say was, we got to accept it. And my understanding, and maybe I'm reading into it, but my understanding is that administration can speak to this. They're paid a certain amount to help us with this, right? When they last saw it, it's the same thing as the draft that we created over the summer, all right? And there hasn't been any movement by council on it, all right?
Right.
And I empathize with them saying, there's a completed document, that has graphics and everything is very pretty that they're contracted to do, but they're sitting around waiting for us to, provide the document, provide the resolution that says this is our strategic plan, so that then they can go and print something up that's legitimately our strategic plan. My concern is that we haven't really done the work on it. All right. Now that may be because it hasn't been in a committee specifically to do the work. I've said my desire would be for at least the chairs of the committee to come together and work on this. Now that doesn't mean that it has to be, a formal, like if the way that it's happening is that one chair is talking to one other chair, and then that one chair is talking to another chair, and then they're bringing it to their committees, what the issues are. I'm not saying that there has to be a designated time when 3 chairs are sitting down together and having a committee meeting. That's not what I'm suggesting. I'm saying in order to speed this up, I would ask the chairs of each committee to start talking to one another about how to do this so that we can move forward on it. I don't think it's fair to,
I don't think it's inconsistent with that plan to go ahead and take this first step, which David pointed out was the piece of paper says all the stuff that we all agreed on originally. All we're saying is we're gonna adopt all the stuff that we agreed upon in October, and then we can have these meetings and flush it out, and maybe then, because my understanding is they are hesitant to even attempt to produce one of those glossy longer documents because we have such a hard time dealing with a one-page document and putting that together.
Exactly.
So I think what we need to do is say, look, we can adopt this, and then we can have these conversations and change things along and perhaps work on finite initiatives because there are 6 there. I think that we are getting caught in the weeds looking at all 6 and being like, how do we work with all of this?
Yeah.
And that's the
It's-
reason I seconded the motion.
Yeah. I
Something.
I think it is, certainly it's council's decision on it. I have reservations around the fact that if you haven't worked on it, I don't see any possibility that, just approving it now, that you're really going to work on it later and add stuff to it. To just say, we're going to pass a strategic plan, that's a draft that we haven't touched and looked at. And
Yeah,
and
but it has all passed in our minds, but Liz Bloom won't sit down and say, look, we're gonna work on initiative 1 now, because you've actually agreed to this.
Well,
So-
But they got their plan past that.
Okay, so why, what the mayor's saying is, why don't the 3 heads of the committees get together, we adopt the plan, you get together, and you fine tune the
This
thing.
plan is already adopted.
It's not, that's what we're trying to do right
We're
now.
beginning to say it's not adopted on a piece of paper, but again, it's adopted.
So
that
then-
We're gonna work on growth in this village. It's all the paper says, it doesn't say any finite or any ideas of how we're moving forward.
Okay.
Perhaps that's an
Okay.
issue with our
Our process.
But that
with
is,
our providers of our service, but
that is actually, well,
That's my-
hang on a second. The consultants are not going to write this plan for us. We are writing the plan.
Correct.
Okay, they're going to direct us. They're going to help us wordsmith it. They're going to help show us what resources are out there. If you remember, when we had the last conversation about this in October, we had these 6 lofty things, and we said council will sort through those and determine what the priorities are. That hasn't happened. There's been no discussion. The only thing that we've moved on is moving forward with stuff going on in the park. So one of the things that they mentioned, I would take issue with what Mr. Knipp said. There are 3 elected officials on the engagement committee, and the work of council, the hashing out of the sausage is supposed to take place in committee, not here in this room. So if you want to
Why is it taking
schedule,
place in a committee that's supposed to be reaching out to the community, not creating the giant umbrella of macroeconomic development? That engagement committee, when
I don't think anybody's done that.
when it's first brought up, it was supposed to be, engagement committee is supposed to be communicating with the community, establishing lines of communication so we know what the community wants. All of us have had private conversations about the lack of representation of the community based on culture, race, and a number of other things. But we put together a community or a committee that has addressed that in an event fashion, but now all of a sudden it's doing macroeconomics, and I'm just in.
But this
three-
isn't
three-
macroeconomics,
three of
this is a
the-
strategic
three
plan
of
for
the
One at a time,
elected
please.
officials
One at a time.
were left out of the loop when it goes through that committee. So my thought is, let's get it, whichever elected official wants to be together, wants to be part of this, get together in a different subcommittee underneath executive and hash this out and assign shit for people to do, because that's the problem, is we didn't really assign stuff to get stuff done. And that's on me, that's on all of us. We haven't done shit since October. We haven't, Ron's looked at it, I get that.
Yeah.
But we're all kind
The
of sitting
administration
there
has done a lot
going,
of
we gotta
work
get
on
this done.
Yeah, administration's done a lot of work.
Yeah, I just said that. They have, but we haven't sharpened our goals. We haven't looked at a logistic process to really get things ready and in a timely fashion. Meeting once a month. Unfortunately, that's how bureaucracy works a lot of times. But if we wanted to do it right, we got to say, hey, you know what? Maybe we meet once a week for a while. Maybe we meet, twice a month or whatever. But they were right in engagement committee. We got to get stuff done. And I understand where Ashley's coming from. Let's get a starting point. But I'm saying let's get a process together and some accountability together and really focus on this. And maybe it's the mayor's plan. Maybe it's what I just said. I don't know. But we've got to get together.
Is anybody opposed to having a due date if you're not going to do it today, as far as approving it, having a due date?
I would love it.
All right, well, I'd entertain a
But we
motion
have-
for that.
we have
There's
to get
already a
together.
motion on the table.
Roger.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I've been through strategic planning process a lot, and this did not fit for me how it usually is. There's a lot more interaction, there's a lot more discussion. We had the benchmark ones with the brainstorming and the presentation of it, but when I saw presented at community engagement, first of all, I found out by accident that was gonna be presented with all the county people here. That is not somebody communicating out saying this is a very important thing that's happening here with that kind of force and support from the county there. If I didn't make one phone call, I wouldn't have heard.
And I'm sorry, I take issue with that because you were on the invitation, as were all of the elected officials, when that meeting was scheduled, and that particular meeting was scheduled at your request with the people from the county.
No, the only person I heard was April. It was not communicated that Steve Johns, that the planning commission guy, everybody else. It was
She
never-
brought her people with her, and go back and look at the invitation, because all of those people were invited.
Yeah, they were
You
invited.
just didn't read the invitation.
Okay, that's my fault then, but I still think maybe a second indication of.
No,
how important this meeting
you're
was.
making this sound like
So-
that like there's something sinister and people are hiding stuff from you, and that's not true.
No, that's the way you're taking it.
And that's what it
All right.
sounds like.
That's the way you're taking it. I'm saying, no, there's activity that's not happening to keep people informed and to make this process, do this process to me that's gonna give the result of a real strategic plan. To me, there has to be a method in here. We keep saying, oh yeah, we're gonna do this. What is the method that we're gonna make, even for what the mayor said, of are we gonna have the chairs of committees together quarterly to do this and track it? That should be in there, not just something, we're going to do this. That is not strategic, doesn't have teeth in it. Mr. Dale said, we are recommending to you that you focus on the Weehee North project and the Stover project. That's not written in here, is it? This is just some fabrication of, it's gotta have more direction, more teeth, and more.
I disagree with your wording of fabrication. That is very derogatory.
Well, okay, I'm sorry,
I-
I'm excited and forgive me for
Get
my,
unexcited.
Yeah,
so.
I interpreted fabrication, not in that way, but point taken. I was thinking
Yeah.
that it was in terms of like you're creating, you're manufacturing something, not in the derogatory sense of you're manufacturing something that isn't real. That's not how I took it, but
And I assure you, there's no part of me that's thinking there's something sinister going on. There's no part of me, this is genuinely what I care about. And I don't think we're in the place that we're gonna really be exercising the strategic plan and what we should be focusing on for the next 12 months or whatever.
it-
And so, anyway, that's, I've got more, but I think I've.
so there's been a motion, it's been seconded, there's been some discussion here. It sounds like there could be a lot more discussion, but I'm conscientious of the time, as I believe everybody is. So without objection, I'm gonna ask to go ahead and have a vote on the motions that are on the table. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
All those opposed?
Aye.
All right, the motion fails. Is there a different motion? I would like council to have a date of when the next discussion of this is gonna occur.
I think
There-
you need to
because-
appoint somebody to be the lead.
It's been
Dan Harden would like to
suggested,
do that.
it's been suggested that it be discussed in executive. Is there any objection to that? I know, Mr. Van Harn, you've been setting your schedule, your agenda stuff. Do you have a sentiment for the council about what priority this would be?
That would push off a lot of other things. Can we at least agree to follow up with at least the heads meeting once first? And then, I don't know if that's fair, or,
Certainly heads can be invited. I would encourage heads to participate, but yeah, it's,
I mean, I'll put it tops on the list and everything else is, because it's that important. So,
Yeah. As just for clarification from our council, can 3 heads meet without it being a scheduled, or can it only
Yes.
be, 3 heads can meet
Three
without?
heads of
Of committees?
committees now.
They can't.
That's,
Okay.
It would have to be a special meeting.
So, right, just sort of for
yeah,
clarity.
it could be a meeting, it could be a scheduled meeting.
Right. What I'm
Published
asking is
and
if
so
they're just doing it on their time. So
Yeah.
all three of them can't meet together, but they can meet like one-on-one. Like Ashley can meet with Roger one day. And
Honestly,
Roger can meet with.
That looks terrible.
I mean, honestly, anytime two member meet, it's a meeting, if council business is being discussed.
Okay.
So,
Let me take that.
My understanding is that, and maybe we need an update on this because I know council members talk with one another about stuff
outside of the meeting.
outside of the meeting. Yeah.
Well, let me.
My understanding was that it was a certain
One-on-ones are
number
paying
of,
more than
Yeah.
Okay.
two is not.
Okay,
only two.
I'll clarify that.
Okay, go
Okay.
ahead.
Yeah,
We
please
need to know.
clarify it
I will
and
clarify
follow up, please, with Mr. Van Harn directly.
Yeah,
And then
I
he'll
certainly
share
will.
that information with Miss Snyder and Mr. Fisher. Is
Yes.
that fair, guys?
That's
Then
fair, and
you'll be
I'll-
clear.
And I'll keep that floating with executive to.
Right. And so then at our next council meeting, we'll have an update on, well, if you guys have done anything or not, right? Is that acceptable? At this point.
Council meeting or?
It's April 17th.
April 17th?
I apologize. What is Mr. Mayor, you're making a recommendation for a deadline or you're set?
What I asked was for the solicitor to follow up with Mr. Van Harn about the specific rules around how many people can meet. Our understanding is that two people can meet without it being a violation of sunshine laws. That he'll either verify that or
I
tell me
guess-
that's not
I
accurate.
guess I want to verify, I will definitely confirm that. But the concept of two people meeting and then two people meeting again and addressing the same thing.
To bring the council an agenda.
But that's kind of getting three people together without, it doesn't pass the gut check is what I'm saying.
All right.
If two council members meet, they discuss a topic, and then one of those members goes and discusses the same topic with another member.
Yeah.
To bring a recommendation to council, that,
Right.
I think,
And
we're
I'm-
skirting that.
Yeah,
skirting the sunshine
I
laws.
want clarity on it because I know that like members of a committee will do that kind of a thing.
So we asked Donald about this,
Mhm.
and he told us very clear that this, we had a training, and another municipality said they can't do that. And we asked Donald, and he came in and he told us, no, you could definitely do it, I could discuss it with him, and then I get his opinion. I'm not allowed to go to Danny and say, well, Roger told me this, so you do the same thing, but I could have the same conversation with the next person,
Okay,
and then we could all come to the council.
I will clarify
Yeah, get
that. I'll talk to
clarification.
Terry.
Can I finish
Surius.
my report?
Just one moment, there was as a point of order, I was asked by by our note taker here for clarification on what I had said. And for clarity, I had asked our solicitor to follow up with the folks that I was asking to have conversations about this, to bring it back to council so that they're clear
Yes, sir.
on what the rules are. I apologize for the interruption this time.
All right, so then in addition to that, there was some discussion on our annual concert and the date conflicting with the Jewish holiday. The band has had, I don't know if it's a cancellation or whatever, but luckily they're available September 10th and we need to, as a council, decide if that date is good for us.
Yeah,
Excellent.
a motion to accept the date, September 10th. Fantastic. All in
Who's the
favor?
I,
Wait, who made the motion? I apologize.
Nobody.
Okay. So we're motion to recommend the second wind ban for September 10th, for a September 10th
Or to
event?
affirm the,
Okay. But who's making a motion?
I believe.
Oh no, my hand's just.
Second? Anyone?
Is there
Second?
a second? Who's the second? All those in favor?
I,
Aye, very
So
good.
who's the band?
It's the band that we had at our 75th celebration, which was very popular. I think everyone in this room really enjoyed the music.
Except for
And-
Rob, he didn't go.
Your question was, it's the second one day.
The second wind band.
That was your question.
So the,
We expect your attendance this year.
Oh,
For
I'll be
those-
there with bells on.
for those who weren't keeping track, we initially had a date that wasn't working with our community in terms of having it available for everybody. And we didn't know if there would be another date that would be available for everyone. And it turns out that there was a date that was available for everyone. And the band can also be available on that date. So yay, Thank you, administration, for pulling that off. Yeah.
Right call at the right time.
very good. Ms. Schneider.
Additionally, the community engagement recommends that council affirm that we will be putting on a Juneteenth event this year. If someone would like to make that motion, or I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any
Just
discussion?
clarify what this
I'm not-
includes.
What do you mean by putting it
Does
on?
this mean that we
We are funding it in some way. It is,
are we funding it and we know we're funding it, or we're making it mean to say we're putting it on our website and we're promoting it and we tell people?
all of those things. We will be helping, yes. We will be helping with the funding, and if they ask for it to be put on our website, I'm sure that the administration would be happy to do so. I don't think we will be creating,
No, I
To-
see it as two questions. It's us affirming that it can take place in our park and that we'll promote it and we'll tell people to attend and we'll attend. That's one question. There's another question if we're funding it and how much.
it is
So
to
are we
fund it.
putting
Yeah.
the two questions together or are we keeping it separate?
To summarize the report, when we had the guest speaker that was involved in, I guess, kind of one of the leaders of putting together our previous June 14th event, they came in, provided numbers of
June
what it cost.
Juneteenth.
Did I say
Juneteenth. You
Yeah.
said June 14th, the Juneteenth, yeah.
Juneteenth? Actually, June 19th. but
14th,
June-
like
Yeah, sorry, I apologize. I'm going to point out for the record that it's almost 10 o'clock this evening. So I apologize. So they brought numbers of what it cost them and then made the request that, correct me if I'm incorrect, Ms. Snyder, they made the request that those numbers be covered by the village this time around. Is that?
So
is that
there's
correct?
discussion going back and forth right now about fundraising on their end and where the gap needs to be filled.
Okay.
And
So I
Eric-
can give you kind of the most updated, Melody Mail had sent me the budget. I asked back, essentially, what is the gap? Number one, I apologize, I'm trying to pull up the most recent. Yeah. My question was, what was the vendor participation that she was expecting, and is she planning to fundraise? Her response was, they're hoping not to fundraise, and if they would have to, they would have to start immediately, and just that in terms of vendor participation, they're trying not to charge the vendors. The planning committee also would like programming and to invite an organization to perform with advertising and programming. That should in turn encourage more neighbors to come. But if they're not charging and they're not fundraising, then it seems that the full cost of the event would go on to the village.
What is that estimate? Do we know?
So the original cost from last year was $1,635, but that's not including any programming that she's mentioning she'd like to see happen. So the cost has not been defined. More than, meaning it certainly would be $1,635, but I don't know to what extent she wants. I don't know what they're looking.
At what point could we have a more firm number, in your opinion, in your discussions?
I mean,
that
she
you've
just
been
reached out to me
My-
today, so.
my understanding, or I believe that Mr. Hirth recommended that if council does affirm, then it's gonna be up to our fiscal officer to work out the financial details, so it will just be within what he feels we can do and is reasonable.
So there is an event grant that's due on Friday. It's the whole grant thing again. That I would, so the basic thing is, are we going to sponsor the event? Are we gonna allow this to happen? And then I think the amount of this can be covered through that grant. So I need to see what the numbers are first.
That
and
grant be
that's-
applied to the celebration 76 event.
It can, yes.
So we kind of.
So I would look at trying to fund the 4th of July, the September concert, the Juneteenth event, and then the police department wants to do something with a back to school event. So that's Those are the
Well,
one
two
things.
things, the police department is considering two things, one's the back to school, the other one is the back to blue barbecue type thing I've been speaking with Reed about. Since I had the floor. And I know I'm gonna take a lot of flack for this, but I really question when government gets involved with putting on religious events or group-specific events, stuff like that. I don't know that it's our place to fund that. I mean, that being said, I've offered my own time at the event. I want to have the event. I will be at the event. I will even donate to the event. But I just question, just like Breakfast was saying, I think I've had that conversation with someone. Yeah, I don't think that's something government should be funding. And respectfully, that's my opinion.
Isn't Juneteenth a federal holiday?
Yes.
Yes.
And I've been told that, and I understand that. I'm just giving my
It's
opinion.
not a group-specific event,
That's the day we were finally all free.
yes.
Yeah.
True Freedom Day.
It's an interesting characterization, and I'm not saying that this isn't something that shouldn't be
Wow.
observed, but I'm just saying that's my opinion. It's kind of a separation.
There-
And I wish I had another word or synonym for it, but it's, you've got a special group here. So, I mean, do we fund Oktoberfest then? Do we fund St. Patrick's Day? Do we just kind of go down the line? Where does it stop? And I know it's going to be unpopular, but understand where it comes from. I'm not a racist. It's just what I believe government should be and what community should be and where there's lines.
Thank you, Mr. Knipp. Any other discussion?
Yes, have you checked with our insurance company if there's gonna be alcohol there, what that means for us as a municipality for sponsors?
Check with one.
Our insurance company,
Oh, it would be covered, of course.
okay, is there an extra rider that we have to pay for, or is it part of our,
It's part of our insurance.
okay?
To answer your question more directly, Ms. Mail said that the person providing the drinks has their own insurance.
We discussed that in the past and how that problem
So,
was.
so
That's
but
a problem.
she understands.
That's not-
The validity of that statement's in question.
She was misled.
I retract my
Right.
statement.
Yeah,
I don't know
Didn't
anything.
we just write an ordinance about things in the park and events and applying for those?
We did, and I think even if she had her own insurance, as you mentioned this earlier,
Yeah.
by putting it on our website, by sponsoring it, by putting our stamp on it, if something happens,
It's on us.
it's gonna be on.
So
But I
she's
believe that
aware-
our insurance would cover it.
She is aware of the changes in the park rules, and the last conversation I had with her was she was rethinking even offering alcohol at this event.
You know, the other thing I just want to mention that is that there was a lot of talk about the insurance, but actually the trigger is if you're gonna sell alcohol, the state permitting is involved, that we would have to apply for that then, to actually permit it. It's not something we're just allowed to do. And that's the part that you have to understand, who's gonna sponsor it, and that sponsor has to be a nonprofit, and they have to deal with the state and the police department, and everybody to be able to permit that event. So,
We just had all this discussion.
Yeah, I thought we did.
well, but here's the thing,
Let the solicitors.
If we're gonna sponsor the event and we provide alcohol, there may be, and I need to review this as well, there may be some licensing required, and if someone's in there, but I don't know where you're coming from saying it's gotta be nonprofit,
I discussed it with, there's an F1 permit, I think it's called,
okay?
and I discussed this with Mr. Donovan, that before, there are specific permits issued by the state depending on your organization and whatever
Right,
else. And
I
then
understand
issue it
that.
to the individual.
But you're saying it's gotta be a nonprofit.
Yeah, in our
I-
case. it
This
would be
is
a
true.
nonprofit.
I had to look this up for community. What was it called? Celebration 75. And or you could be a municipality who runs a golf course. That was another weird option.
And
Yeah.
A
technically-
nonprofit.
Somebody
golf cart.
lobbied for that,
Yeah,
obviously.
yes.
Yes.
But I think all we can simply say is yes, we are going to sponsor this event, which was the motion was made, right? We're in the discussion
Yes, we're
phase?
discussing.
Okay, and then it's the details come later, as in,
Will it allow alcohol or
will it
not?
allow alcohol, whatever.
Well-
But this is the first stage of, do we even wanna do this?
And we
What his
obviously
point-
would not
what his
allow
point was-
alcohol if we're not allowed to offer alcohol.
Right.
Because we would vet that.
Well, but my intention was, there's a cost generally to having insurance to sell alcohol, but I'm told it's not. I didn't know that until now, but usually there is an additional policy you buy for events. Secondly, there is a liability to this that sometimes it's probably in our policy, but depending on the number of attendees,
Yeah.
there are things that happen with that.
Yeah, and my understanding was that our solicitor said that he was gonna get kind of the details on that. You said you were gonna clarify yourself.
I'll clarify the liquor issue.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
think there's any question there's liability for the village
Right.
for any
right.
event.
And he had already said that he believed that it would be covered.
Right.
Yes,
But
but
it
it
would
would
be
be
on
If there was
us.
a cost to it, I wanted,
Yeah.
that should be part of the budget,
Yeah.
if there is.
Yeah.
But they're saying there may not be.
There's
The
not.
last thing, the important thing is that the trigger to getting a permit is when you sell it. If you're going to sell it, you have to have a state permit, bar none. You have to have a permit, whatever you're doing, if you're a brewery, if you're whatever, it doesn't matter. And that's the trigger. It's not whether you have insurance or not. It is,
Okay.
if you're gonna sell it, you have to go through the permitting process.
On the bright side, some of those permits are changing, coming up. A friend of mine's a liquor control agent for Hamilton County. He said a lot of these things are starting to change a little bit to give a little more flexibility for nonprofits, municipalities to have liquor.
That sounds like good news. Any other discussion on this?
So my point is that this event is a very nice event, it's beautiful. When someone comes in and says, last year I did fundraising, but today I want to throw it out, I'm throwing it all onto the government, you guys fork out all the money, I'm not doing any more sponsoring and I'm not gonna go get those funds, right? That is a little bit bothersome to me, that, no, you keep up the funds that you did, we need more help and extra money to put out more ads and stuff like that, okay, come to us so we can help you sponsor that, but to go ahead and say, oh, well, I'm throwing it all on to you, you guys, all the money that I sponsored last year, I'm not going after a single person and asking for that. I find that a little bit troubling, like, no, keep up your event as the way it is, and we'll help you make it better, that's something else.
Yeah, I hear your
We're in
point, but
control of that, so that's where I'm looking to the fiscal officer to make a recommendation to us about what we can afford. So we may come back to her and say X amount of dollars and you have to make up the difference.
in all fairness, I was here when she was giving her presentation. That's not what it sounded like. I understand your point, and it's a valid point. It's not what it sounded like that was being presented.
This is what it sounded like today.
That is what
Well,
she's communicating from the emails, that
When she gave the
she is not
presentation-
intending to currently fundraise or charge vendors.
When she gave the
And-
presentation, she said, I only need money to add for ads and to promote
Okay,
it.
yeah.
I need the village to help me promote it.
All right.
That's what she said.
All right.
She sent the email that he read out earlier, she said, I'm not doing anything, you guys take care of it.
But as I hear the administration saying, we're certainly obviously in the position to be saying, council gave the approval to support this, and as the administration, we're saying that we're gonna need you to match funds, or what, is that allowable within, or does someone wanna?
No,
You
I
could
think, I
ask
think
them.
we should tell her what she did last year, she's doing, you need more to fund, then we could talk about that. Tell her that's,
What I'm understanding is your recommendation would be not to match funds, but that the event should be, they should fundraise whatever they funded, and whatever the gaps are beyond that, the village could take on even more responsibility. Is that what I'm
More
understanding?
responsibility, that's all I was saying.
Not more responsibility,
I
more
was
being,
It's fair to
if
come
it-
ask us to help you make more people show up and help you with the promoting of it, but to come and throw the whole thing onto our lap and say, I'm not doing anything, I find that a little trouble. I think my recommendation will be is that if they're willing to keep up what they were doing in the past and ask us for help, then we should be able to help them. If they're not keeping up what they did in the past and throwing everything onto us, it's a whole different discussion.
So if they make an effort and fall $200 short, you feel that the village can fund that $200?
But that's a discussion.
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah. I think how I kind of frame this is that we've been encouraging, I've certainly been encouraging, I think everyone's been encouraging this idea of community members that are interested in having events
100%.
to go ahead and, go for it, all right? And we're willing to support you with that,
Absolutely.
all right? And we're still saying that. It's a matter of, I get it, if you're exhausted and everything, then, we want you to be successful with it. But we can't just You know, take the ball and us do
I
it.
support the event. I worked
Yeah.
13 hours at the event on the ground,
Yeah.
setting up, tearing down, cleaning up, all
Got
of last year.
Got you there. I saw you.
It's just
I
that-
helped a little.
It's just, I think you're,
Yeah.
whatever.
Can we bring it back to the motion, please?
Yeah, we're finishing the discussion, I believe, is where we are on that.
Yeah.
So so the motion on the table was, are we gonna take on the event in all its fiscal?
No, not all of it.
Okay.
What was discussed and approved by the committee was that if we decided to sponsor this, that then the next steps was, for the Juneteenth committee to speak with Mr. Pridnoff.
All right, so it's not.
There was no
if we approve
guarantee.
this, it's not a guarantee of funding if we approve this.
Or a
This
full
is just
funding.
saying that we approve the administration working with them on
Mhm.
putting together an event.
For the event.
For the event.
All right. Is that clear? Any other discussion?
I want to find a way to vote for it, but if the funding piece is attached, I can't, so.
It doesn't sound like it is.
We're not
It doesn't
funding,
sound
we're
like the
funding.
funding is attached to this. This is
That's
about
right away. And
giving
said
the-
it is.
It was so that they could seek funding, but that was gonna be up to our fiscal
Well,
office.
That's gonna come back to council to approve the amount of funding.
That's a
Is that what,
fair amendment to your motion. That we will
Okay.
sponsor the event, provide advertising, but any funds shall be approved in advance by council.
Is there such a motion with an amendment? Or is the previous motion, I'm presuming, is rescinded?
I will allow it to be amended in that way.
I'm sorry, can I clarify the amendment? I apologize. I'm
Yeah.
trying to just get it clear.
Allow the solicitor to provide the
Sorry,
wording.
Mr. Van, Ms. Snyder would like to affirm there's a motion to affirm the Juneteenth event to be sponsored by, what is the,
Supported by.
Supported by the village. Motion to support by Ms. Snyder, and there was a second by Mr. Marks. What's the amendment that we're making?
That any funding will come to council for approval.
That sounds awesome.
And Mr. Marks second that? Okay, there was a
Alright.
significant amount of discussion. I tried to keep
Yeah.
that as brief.
I presume discussion is closed without objection.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Without objection, I hear that as unanimous. All right. Anything else, Ms. Snyder?
Let me see here.
How about Ms. Cheney's education report?
Yeah, let me get Miss Cheney's education report. It's like 20 pages long.
That's
You
below
serious?
So,
Okay, all right.
That was my last thing was, currently we have, it's May 19th. May 19th as a cleanup planting day. We will be discussing in our next meeting if we would like to make that the yard sale weekend. Makes sense since it coincides with the dumpsters, tire dumpster, general dumpster for the weekend. And I will let you know.
That is a We Thrive event, is that correct?
No,
Oh,
I mean, it was, now,
maybe.
maybe.
okay. Just for the minutes.
No, it's just that.
We have Silco sponsoring, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Possibly. We're waiting to hear back since
Yeah.
other things are taking
Chief
precedent
Campbell's
over there.
daughter, right?
Do we have a report for the education?
No, there is not.
There is no report?
one.
Okay. Is there a nonprofit report?
No.
All right. Finance committee?
Finance committee met tonight, we discussed, Eric went through the financial packets of up until February of this year, including the December, that covered the whole last year. After that, we just had a discussion for travel per diem policy for the police department, and we did recommend that the administration work together with the solicitor to figure out what that would look like and how that would be controlled, that we would go forward with them and they'll come back with clear information on that. We also had a discussion at the STAR Fund, that we increased the deposit that was done to the STAR Fund because we got another grant to be able to fund the road project, so we had extra money, and it's going to start fund that will bring us in about 3 to 4% interest. We had another discussion that we asked the financial officer to look into it more about having another fund that is a high interest business fund that you can put money in and out at a quick clip, and will give us some extra money, and he's looking into some also to be protected, and if there's a chance that the bank will go bust, if we lose that money, I want to this is not involved in that, and he is going to do some more work on that. That's the end of my financial report.
Thank you, sir. Our next meeting of,
You better.
Well, yeah, but I think you mentioned that at the beginning. The last thing was we did up our administrators pay from last year, and we recommended to up the next year after a executive meeting that will review the administrators' work going forward.
That'll happen in April.
Yeah, right, that would happen.
all right, our next executive committee meeting is at 5:30 on April 17th. The next finance committee is at 6:30 PM on that same date, and the council will meet at 7:30 PM or immediately after the conclusion of the finance committee meeting. Excuse me. After that, we'll have, the next meeting will be May 8th, with which we'll have the executive committee meeting at 6 PM, council 7 PM or immediately following that committee. There has been a request for an executive session immediately at the end of our meeting this evening. I'd also ask that we have another bio break, but for those who are attending via online, we're going to be going there.
We don't need a break. It's like. a
We could be
2-second
so
thing.
quick with this, Your Honor.
Alright, so let's
Make a motion to move to executive session.
All right,
Second.
roll call, please.
Sorry.
Are we off? Or we'll
You have to
wait till this.
edit the
yeah.
camera.
Okay, Mr. Fisher,
Yes.
Mr. Knipp,
Yes.
Mr. Marks,
Yes.
Ms. Snyder.
Yep.
Mr. Van Horn.
Yes.
Very good.
May I? We're down.
Who was the motion?
Wait,
I
one more
apologize.
time, just a
Was the
second.
motion to move?
Oh,
was
yeah.
Mr. Marks and second was
Somebody
Mr.
on the hall.
Fisher.